to stop taking yourself so seriously.
Like in what ways though? Because it's upsetting. Like the things I'm upset about aren't like little things.
Yeah, but you care too much.
I care too much about not being seen as like an equal part of society or being seen as
No,
equally.
I mean, you have a valid, like, yeah, those are valid things to care about, but like, I don't know. I guess I'll just come to the conclusion that like everything has to happen incrementally. Like one of the biggest things in 48 Laws of Power is like it's okay everything changes, but you have to be basically cool with understanding that like if you try to make people change too rapidly, they're going to resent you. So you have to like kind of spoon feed them into change.
So that's what we should do with like white people when they don't want to like stop killing black people.
Well, I think there are ways around that. And like this is what everybody doesn't want to hear, but like we literally have like three options. One is to do this revolution thing that everybody's like, we just need to fight the power and go out there and, but like, you got these fucking ex-military hick guys who like trucker types who, you know, they know what they're doing with weapons too. So like, clan types, like so. If we go out there and do that, that's what the fuck they want, and it's just gonna be like all out domestic war, and like no, like it's just it really doesn't go to a really good outcome.
Because I feel
We
like
we could,
what we're like, even today, because we're not even here to talk about that today. We're supposed to be talking about Rick and Morty. But even in the first episode, Rick, wait, let me get the episode name right. Dang it, I hate this thing so much.
while you're finding that, my other 2 points, or
Forgetting Sir Rick Mortshall, which is one of the big themes about it is getting out of an abusive relationship. And just for, some background on me, like I've been in an abusive relationship, so it's really triggering. Like I love this episode because it does such a beautiful job illustrating like how difficult it is to break out of these cycles. And I guess just because on a larger scale, I feel like I'm in an abusive relationship with not only like the United States, but almost kind of the world because you're constantly asked to. I can never explain fully what it feels like if every space you go into, you're expected to fully acknowledge that you're not as much. Like, you as a woman, like I'm like, I don't know why the Catholic Church is still a thing because they should have been me too'd a long ago. It's so sexist. Like it's in the rules. You can't have any female leadership. Like I don't know any organizations that can get away with stuff like that, like where it's just in the rules. We don't allow women to be in charge. Like if there was a let's say I was trying to get a job at an advertisement company and they were like, hey, just so you know, we don't allow any women to be in charge of any men. I'd be like, okay, this isn't the place for me. And it's gross. And you also shouldn't have a tax exempt status. So, like, I guess I'm just feeling all this stuff at once, and there's nowhere to go where I can't feel it except the universe of Rick and Morty because they address it head on.
yes, and I think you, as well as all women, deserve to have equal rights. I just think that it's going to be.
Can't even get a lot of men to say that. I was at a party this weekend and I was, just talking about stuff. I wasn't on a rant or anything, but I had a guy turn to me. He's like, "Ah, you one of them feminists, huh?" And I'm like, "Yes,
You get said people tell you that a lot.
yes, I know." But it's like, why? I don't know why being a feminist is a pejorative. Like, why is that a bad thing?
Well, because it's miseducation. So it's like that's why. Okay, so another point I was gonna make, or well, a spinoff point, is like that's why I don't really get upset with racism in the same way that people do, like other black people do. It's still upsetting, but like because I went to a Catholic school and it exposed me to like white people, and like I became friends with some white people and I understand kind of how they think. It has put me in a different space of where like a lot of racism comes from just miseducation. It's not necessarily like, oh, they're bad people, quote unquote. It's just like they don't fucking know, and like they haven't really been exposed to it. And they like when you don't know something, you haven't been exposed to it. I'm sorry, people. Most people probably don't give a fuck, and so like to relate that to what you're saying, a lot of men have been spun in a certain way or grew up a certain way and exposed to things, and so like they're used to like women are second tier or whatever. So it's just like and they haven't had a lot of opportunities. It's not an excuse, but they haven't had a lot. I don't think they've had a lot of opportunities where people have checked them because it's going to take men like myself to have this conversation. I think it falls on easier ears when it's like, hey man, no, you probably shouldn't do that because of this, versus like a woman being like, oh, da 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 da,
I guess
which
everyone wants
sucks.
to hear stop oppressing me, stop oppressing me. But I feel that way like stop oppressing me. Like I just yeah, it's not what this is about, but I do it's just I think I'm suffering from like religious trauma syndrome. Like it's really starting to get to me. And maybe it is because more of the isolation from like,
Hmm.
COVID, and maybe it's just from having more free time now to think about it. And the fact that I'm also doing another podcast where I read books, and I don't know what it is. Like, I mean, I definitely don't want to take it out on like you or people. Like I was telling you yesterday, like I was in a meeting and I just got so triggered because like the woman we were consulting with like was just talking like all this Christian stuff, and it's just like shut up saying that to me. Like I know looking at me, I'm a middle-aged black woman, like I should be super Christy, but I don't fuck with that shit. And I literally, I'm not saying this to be like dramatic. It's an insult to me. It's an insult to me who I am as a black woman that you would even try to get me to worship this.
But that's what I'm telling you right now. Most people, one, probably don't understand that, and yeah, like you can check them, but I think I'm just so much happier in life when it's just like if something like that happens and I'm just like I don't really want to be around this Christian shit or whatever. It's just like no, I'm just gonna let them do what they do and I'm gonna shut the fuck up and I'm just whatever. And like I don't think that's cowardice. I just think like I think you get to a certain point in life where it's just like I don't even want to take the energy to address that if it's unnecessary. Now, if you come to me and you say, "Hey, are you a Christian and do you have these values and all whatever?" Then that is my chance to address it. But you and I've had this conversation many times where I'm like, nobody likes when you fucking come out of nowhere and you're like, oh, this thing is wrong or whatever. This isn't real. Like, nobody wants that because I didn't ask you. Now, if I ask you, then it's different.
That's true, but no one's asking me. Like, I feel like I can't escape it.
But they're not going to do that.
But I'm bombarded with it all the time. Like, it's inescapable. Like I said, except for the Rick and Morty universe, I do like how they take a lot of these concepts head on. I would say that Dan Harmon is one of my favorite white men.
I think one of the greatest quotes I've ever heard, and this may be dismissive to some people, but no one cares. Work harder. So like, and work harder within yourself. Like everything you just told me, whereas I agree with you, I also feel like how much of that is ego because you're choosing to like you're in control of your feelings or at least, you can somewhat control them. And so if somebody's doing those things to you, then it's like, "Oh, well, do I address this or do I not? Is it worth my time or is it not?" And then
Well, who can I even like work with? Like there's always something like I don't know, man. It's hard because for me, I really do feel like it's inescapable. Like if I'm not dealing with racism, I'm dealing with sexism.
I just think it's not happening fast enough for you. But I see like just because there is a bit of an age difference between us, I do see the change. Like I feel like surprisingly too. Like it's a lot of like just where this newer generation is more, I think, aware of certain things. So it's just not happening quick enough. But I do see the change. Unfortunately, you just came up in the generation where
No, I
like
mean, me being older, I've seen more change than you. Like, yeah, I've seen the change. I know it's not like standing still. It's more of a for me this has just been the fact that I am older too. It's like more cumulative. Like it just builds up and builds up, and I think too with like I probably need to do like a social media fast for a while, or just like a media fast.
I thought you were already doing that.
No, I mean, I'm still on social media.
Oh, okay.
I'm still like checking the news every day. I think the like abortion ban in Texas has me really triggered.
Oh yeah, that was very triggering for me as well.
Big clear line that like in Indiana, I mean, where we live, like they're gonna try that stuff too. They've shut down so many
Yeah.
Planned Parenthoods already, and it's
Have you seen the
this, but I know like Rick and Morty, it really does. I think I've watched these two episodes 3 times each.
mm,
The first one being Forgetting Sarah Rick Mortschel, and the other one being Rick Mickey Jack. See, it already makes me feel better now just saying those titles. It's so dumb and silly, but and so deep at the same time. So I'm sorry if I've been bitchy to you. I notice like even in myself, because it's like I'm just so upset so often, and I'm generally a very happy person,
yeah.
but it's hard to like watch and absorb all of this, and on top of everything else, and have this sort of expectation of me that I should be very respectful to these institutions. Like I'm the one who's being a bitch when I'm like, I don't like being told that I'm not capable of leadership. And I don't like being told that,
But you don't have to be around those people either.
like, who can I be around?
There are plenty of people out there who I'm sure, like, first of all, what was that movie? The Most Hated Woman in America. Like, I feel like,
A little bit too. And the fact I'm a little mad at you too, because I needed a trigger warning. I mean, spoilers, I didn't know that she was like kidnapped and murdered.
oh,
Hell out of me.
oh, well, sorry. Yeah, that happens.
Yeah, like when the granddaughter, I was like, freak, that ruined my day.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Well, I didn't. To be fair, I didn't know that. I didn't know about her until I watched that movie, and that's only because.
And it was like kind of funny. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? She was hilarious. What was her name? Madeline Marshall
yeah, sure.
O'Hare Marshall.
Yeah.
Marshall O'Hare.
Hold on.
Um,
It was Madeline. Yeah, Madeline Murray. You were close. Madeline Murray O'Hare.
okay, Madeline Murray O'Hare, and she was the founder of American Atheists, which I've actually familiar with that organization. They, I think, because they're out of Austin, I know like the Atheist Experience is like a podcast, or like this
Mm,
cable access
mm,
show they used to do forever, like Matt Dillahunty and stuff like that. And yeah, I enjoyed their work. She was quite a character. It was for me like a deeply relatable character, because yeah, I'm a nonconformist. Like I don't want to be told like I didn't know that was her who got prayer out of school. Like
yeah, that was so dope.
praise, it's like, yeah, like no, you can pray wherever you want to. The teacher just can't make you pray to her fucking God.
Yeah.
Pray to your God in your own time. It's like, it would be like she said, if I had a, like, she's like, are you anybody here Jewish? It's like, does your mama know that you're praying to Jesus Christ every day? It's like, no, like you don't have to. And that's the thing, this is America. This is the thing I like most about America. As fucked up as America is, like I'm the descendants of slaves over here,
Mm,
but what those white men put in the Constitution, which was revolutionary, was the fact that we don't have a state religion. Congress can't make laws, and but they religion always finds a way to try to get theocracy back in there, so that their sky
yeah.
daddy and their imagination is who is in charge.
Yeah.
And when America, it's like, no, you can't do that, but we have to still like constantly
Sky
fight to keep
Daddy.
those rights. Yeah, it's Sky Daddy. Like people don't realize that's what it, because people don't take the time to really stop and think about this stuff. And like that's why knowledge is a burden, which is why Rick is so sad until he gets with these crows. Let's get
Mm,
into it. Because I feel good when I'm talking about Rick and Morty. I feel bad when I'm talking about the intersectionality of race and sexism.
okay. Well, do you want to start since you loved him so much?
Sure. Okay, so thank you for watching it too. I've been wanting to talk about this.
Yeah, I mean, I usually watch them every week, but I didn't know like you gave me shit yesterday. I didn't know like I just feel like I just thought they was taking a break because I tuned in one week and I was like, oh, okay, no new episodes is on, cool. And then I didn't know when they were coming back because it was like 2 weeks in a row. Like I tuned in and was like, oh, nothing's on here.
Yeah. So I knew just because I watch a lot of Rick and Morty reviews on YouTube what was
Mm.
going on because the nerds kept me informed. So thank you, nerds. Um, so this episode, the first one, forgetting Sarah Mortschel. I love puns. They're so I love Dan Harmon and Justin Roy. I just the whole team over there. I love them so much. Excuse me. That was a little tribute to Rick. So we start this with Morty, who is trying to correct some of the disasters Rick has left in the wake of some of their adventures. So he's kind of got a checklist. So he's using the portal without Rick's permission and going to different places and trying to patch stuff up. When he gets back, he realizes Rick marked the portal fluid. So he's like, oh no, what do I do? So he puts some Mountain Dew in the portal gun and then actually get some of the actual portal fluid on his hand. And it opens up a portal to this. What was that guy's name? I can't even remember now.
I don't remember.
A crazy dude.
Yeah, something like that.
And who had spilled some on his thigh. So now they have like a connection portal, kind of like how Steven Universe and Lars did in Steven Universe. So
I never seen it.
if you've seen it, you get it. And so they're like talking to each other and kind of commiserating about like how abusive Rick is. And so Morty's finally like, okay, I'm just gonna finally get away from Rick. I'm done with this. Deep once again, deeply relatable content because tried to get out of so many toxic relationships. And eventually Morty realizes that he's just gotten into another crazy relationship. So he literally cuts off his hand to get away from the crazy dude. And then like that was so dope. Like when he
Yeah, that was tight.
was see, that's how I like to watch people get murdered. Like
And being sucked into themselves.
in just a completely unrealistic way. Like no one's really dying like that. When I see people die the way people can really die, that freaks me out.
People get shot and cut up on Rick and Morty all the time.
But like with phaser guns, like they don't really use like semi-automatic weapons. He's using like
Oh
he
my god. They still show like blood and brains and guts and stuff like it's very graphic.
a cartoon and it's still like to me it's not as triggering as like really watching like a reenactment of a I can't explain it. My brain is dumb. It's fine. And in the meantime, so so that's what's going on with Morty in the episode because this is really just a literal Rick and Morty episode. We really I mean we see Jerry a little bit, but
Jerry.
it's really Rick and Morty in this one. And Rick, he's like, you know, Morty, you're pissing me off. I'm going to replace you with two crows because you're just that worthless. But then ends up like learning, getting super into crows and they teach him empathy. And at the end of the episode, Morty is like, hey, let's get back together, Rick and Morty. And Rick's like, hey, you know what we had isn't healthy. I think I have more to learn from these crows. So I'm going to leave you to your thing. And that's episode 9.
I mean, episode 10 pretty much just picks up where that leaves off.
No, I
Yeah.
wanted to get your because I feel like I
Oh,
mostly
my
I wanted to
thoughts.
get your thoughts on episode 9. What was your
I
favorite
know.
part? Favorite part?
Probably the portal. Him cutting off his hand and putting it in dude's thigh, and then that dude being sucked into himself. Like that was probably like the coolest moment for me. But I don't. Oh, it's a good show.
Have
I
you
don't
ever
know.
had trouble breaking off a toxic relationship?
Of course, plenty of times. But I didn't see when I was watching that. I wasn't thinking that. So excuse my dumb brain because I was just like, oh, okay. Like I wasn't relating it to that really.
I was immediately triggered.
Yeah, I was
Like
the same.
immediate like the first thing even when they were having that argument and then dude's like, "Whoa, that is not a healthy relationship."
Oh, okay.
And then even to the point of cuz it the fact that they show Morty's hand getting cut off to break off stuff with the psycho dude, like, to me emotionally, that's what it felt like, breaking off with some of like my toxic relationships.
Yeah.
To that, I'm trying to make sure, like, even though I felt like they were abusive relationships and I was being abused, I was bringing toxicity to it as well. Like, it wouldn't have, the abuse tactics wouldn't have worked if I wasn't toxic as well. So, like, getting rid of those thought patterns and behaviors that were keeping me there, like, it did feel like cutting off a part of myself. So, I mean, I know it's a cartoon, it shouldn't be that.
No, that's super deep. I mean, I'm sure that's what they were going for in a way. Yeah, I thought it was like I thought it was dope. I thought it was dope, especially with that deeper meaning. I mean, but Rick and Morty is usually very dense anyway, so you have to like watch it a few times to get it, which makes it super genius. I'm into stuff like that where you might not get it the first time. You have to watch it a few times.
And I mean, how do you think like episode 9, how it compares to the other episodes in the season?
It's probably one of the better episodes. At first, when they were starting off with this particular season, I was just like, "Oh, okay," because I think it was season 4. When did Rick go to that place where he was going to shit and like was that season 4? That was like the end of season 4. Yeah, yeah. So that episode, that whole season, when I was watching the review, they were like, "Oh, it's this show is really going towards like Rick is just becoming unhappy, he's gonna die, and da 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 da, and it's just gearing up for that." So like mentally, I was just expecting that, like a la Tony Soprano esque type of situation where you just become inherently more dissatisfied with life. But with this, but then season 5 came and it's just like, oh, they're just back to doing their old shtick again, and it's like there's all these. It's funny. I think it was in episode 10 where they drop a line about the Citadel, and it was like, if we go back to the Citadel, like that's fucking canon. So then we have to whatever. Something Rick says something about that, but like basically all these other episodes could be like take it or leave it episodes. They don't necessarily have to be canon. Um, so I just this whole season has felt like, is this really, I guess, quote unquote canon? Because it's just like they're just doing a lot of shit, but it doesn't really relate to the other episode. These last two, obviously, had follow ups, but yeah.
Well, because we're dealing with a multiverse, I felt like they never established which universe we're in with any episode. Like, I always felt like any episode of Rick and Morty we were watching, we could be in any
Well, no, the Rick and Morty we're following is like C. They say it like a few times.
Morty we're following. Like, they've established like this isn't Rick's original Morty and Beth. In fact, like, they already established in the Phoenix Person episode that the Rick we're following, C137, is living with a like abandoned Beth.
Oh, okay.
One of the creeps who live with an abandoned Beth, like when he was inside Bird Person's memory and stuff like that. So, I mean, I think that because, and like, there was the duplicates or the decoy episode and stuff like that, where they
Yeah,
were like, you think you're watching that one, but we could be
yeah,
watching, or even in the Citadel episode, like the Rick Lantix mix up or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Like, even on those, like, I think that it's possible. Um,
I think that's a fun way to make it make sense without you having to think about it too much. So yeah, I mean,
and I mean, that's the thing with Rick and Morty, like the way that they write this, that's the sort of high concept sci-fi, which is my faves. Oh, and even though it's still, because we recorded like at midnight or whatever, it's happy Star Trek Day.
oh
Happy
yeah,
Star Trek Day. I love
that
it.
show.
I love Star Trek. And I will say it here, Star Trek taught me way more than the Bible ever did. So you'll
Mm,
get way more moral and ethics from Star Trek than you ever.
I feel like Batman did that for me.
Yeah, sure. Comic books. Once again, these are all, so much media ends up being kind of morality tales. Like, that's why we
Yeah,
don't like stuff that don't have good stories or good messaging.
yeah, yeah.
So
It's
Yeah.
one of the reasons I got into media was because
Yes,
of
it's important. Like the
yeah.
way we tell stories is important, which is why the Bible stuff pisses me off because we keep
It's not good storytelling. If it was better storytelling, would you be okay with it?
it. No, if the messaging were better, like
Well, I think there's some good messaging in there.
no, this because I've actually said some of the storytelling devices in the Bible are good. Like there's intrigue, there's sex, there's deception, there's all this stuff. But the message is usually messed up because it's usually some guy who was about to kill his kid and it ends up being God's favorite because he hears voices in his head. I don't know. Like to me, that's not a good lesson. Like we should follow
Hmm.
this guy who almost killed his kid on an altar because he hears voices in his head. That's literally what happens in the story. Like I'm paraphrasing it, and like the way I'm sounding it makes me sound like a dick, but that's what we read the story. That's what happened.
Yeah, no, I mean, if we saw that today, everybody would be like, "He's a fucking monster." Like, which,
There's no indoor plumbing. People don't have time to sit around and think about
which is why one of my biggest, I guess, critiques is like, if we were to see that stuff today, we would be so appalled. But if we read it in this book that's supposedly the word of God, then it's like, oh well, we should follow this. There's nothing wrong with that, and it's just like, no, it still does not make sense. Like that's not cool. That's not okay. And you have to think about like again the trauma that like if you go in the woods or wherever the fuck they were, the desert, and your dad is gonna kill you. Like what the fuck?
it. Goes
Like
to
that
show
is such an awkward walk home.
we talk about this all the time, but it goes to show how powerful marketing is and branding is.
Best marketing team of all time, man.
Boy, like it, and the longer it goes, the harder it is to break into that. Like it's like, wait, can we think about this for a couple seconds? It's like, no, because then I'm going to hell, bitch. And it's like, okay. Like
Did you ever watch Book of Eli?
did.
I remember specifically in that movie where Gary Oldman's bad guy villain character was just basically ranting about like he's seen what the power of the Bible can basically do, and that's why he wanted to get the book so badly. Um, when Book of Eli first came out, I didn't even know it was about the Bible. That was
I
so
didn't
crazy.
either. That wasn't until the end, and I was like, oh, okay. It's like, but it
But
only
did
works because no one's read it. So you can keep the mystery around it because
yeah.
it's just like, oh, you have to. It's like, we can read now. This is just whatever. Back to Rick and Morty. This is supposed to be about Rick and Morty. So because Rick Marai Jack was like, because even though the show is good at storytelling, they were like being overly dramatic on purpose. I felt like in episode 9, like it was heightened.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then they go straight into anime mode on this one.
Yeah. They even changed the animation slightly to match that style. Yeah.
Super, I was into anime more when I was younger. My kids are super into it now. So, like, now when they are doing the stuff and like he's doing the sword, like holding it like a dick, and like it was just very, the tropes were mwah. Like, I really, really, really enjoyed.
I've never gotten into anime.
Oh, when I was younger, because it's beautiful.
I mean, I guess this does Dragon Ball Z count?
Storytelling for me now is just I'm used to a different type of storytelling, and it's a little disjointed for me. Um, but I understand the appeal, and it is very beautiful. But yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
I can't really sit and watch an anime now,
Mm-hmm.
but I can definitely sit and watch some Rick and Morty. This was fantastic, and then all right, let's just get into it because this is really about getting to Evil Morty. This is what it's all been leading up to. So let's just skip ahead because we've talked about so much, and this is already like going on and on and on. So we get yada yada yada. Rick and Morty figure out that they need to go to the Citadel, and when they get there, because they have to change Morty back because Morty changed himself to a 40-year-old to try to guilt Rick into coming back. And so they have to take him to the Citadel to get him turned back into a 14-year-old. Like that was one of the like brief scenes where we actually get to see the Smiths. And yeah, we go to the Citadel and we finally get to learn like what evil more. And I think
I totally forgot about Evil Marty. I'm not gonna lie to you.
this was all about. Well, and here's the other thing. I think he should come up with a different name than Evil Morty. Like Evil Morty, I relate so hard to Evil Morty because he's just like, I'm sick of this shit. Like, and if
Well,
you,
he even says in the episode, "I'm only evil basically because he chose to think for himself."
yes,
Which
hello,
relating to the Bible, you're only going to hell because you chose to think for yourself.
thank you,
Well,
T. Thank you for that.
yeah.
Thank you for making that connection for me, because that is how it feels. Like, he's like, and he was like, and if you've ever been sick of his shit, you've been evil too. You know what I mean? And in that moment, and once again, because we do this with the stories we hear, like, I don't know if this was their intentions when they were writing and producing this. That is how I felt about the biblical God. Like, at a certain point, I'm like, this is abusive and gross. I'm out of here.
Mm.
And everyone's like, no, you're the devil. And it's like, because I don't think it's cool to like beat and enslave people. Once again, we that's the Bible. It's really, really cool with it. And so, and I'm not making that up. It's in there. Like, people just don't like reading because it's boring. But like, it's it's in there. So like,
Takes a little bit of work for sure.
scene when Rick pops up like Stan Lee, when he was like, kids, go back and check episode, because there was a little part when when Morty is expositing, and a little like Stan Lee looking Rick pops up, and he is like,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I felt like that was Stanley. I wasn't sure, but I was like, oh, that's
oh,
a
that
good one.
was Stan Lee all day. Excelsior, come
Shout out to Stanley. Rest in peace.
on, us a lot. He gave us a lot.
Long live Stanley.
Yes, and I mean, he will through the Marvel universe, and I'm here for it. So yeah, so now we find out that basically, and also too, like, they come out and say it. The Citadel is a metaphor for capitalism.
Mm.
And do you remember the Simple Ricks episode when well, it was the original Evil Morty episode where they were in the Citadel, and there was the Rick who was trying to break free, and they made those wafer cookies. And
Slightly, but not 100%.
because it was so weird, because you have all these different Ricks, but there's still this social strata. Like, they're the working everyday Ricks, there's the cop Ricks, there's the factory worker Ricks, there's their bosses, and it's just sort of this weird hierarchy, even though everyone is a Rick. And so it becomes a sort of it goes into the how capitalism uses our emotions to exploit us and get work out of us, even though there's no reason to have a servant class, basically. I think
Yeah.
we're going through that now, like, even with our labor shortage here in the States. It's like more and more people are like, hey, I don't need to do this. And I was thinking the other day how weird it is, like, having servers. Like, when we go to those like banquets and stuff, like for school or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and there's people like
Mm-hmm.
coming and serving you and stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
do not enjoy that.
Actually, to piggyback off that, because I kind of had one of the most intriguing experiences relating to serving last night when I went out. When I was with some classmates, we went to Dave and Buster's, and because of the pandemic, like they're trying to reduce, your proximity to people, and so instead of like normally you go in a restaurant and like they'll seat you, your server will come up and they'll say whatever what to do, but here they literally had a sign when you walked in. It says seat yourself. You go seat yourself. They had a sign on the table. You had to take your phone out to pull up the menu. Once you found out what you wanted, you ordered from your phone. And then the only time the server came over was to like, verify that you had been helped and then to bring you your food. But it wasn't like they didn't continue to keep coming over like normal and check on you and all really like that. I think she came like one extra time, but that was it. So it was like, and I was like, oh, this is like way like, yeah, this is better. This is better. Like, it's safer. And it's just like, no, you probably don't need as many people here as well.
I don't like the interruption. Like, when I'm usually out to dinner with friends or on a
Yeah.
date, and as you can,
Apparently, in other countries, they don't do that. I haven't been, but I've heard that like that's not a thing. Like they only really do that in like Americanized countries. Like I guess in like France or whatever, they like you come, you order, and like they don't come over. I don't know. That's what I've heard. If I'm wrong, somebody can correct me. But that's what I've heard. Like that's not a thing in other countries.
that would be so much better. I would enjoy that a lot more. But yeah, I think the the fact that we get to see more, because now I'm wondering, like, what is season 6 going to be about? Are we going to see
Mm,
the Mortius Morty? I would call him the Mortius Morty, because our Rick is the Rickest Rick, and so our Morty is the Mortius Morty.
mm.
And that the fact, oh, because this was the big reveal that our Rick, or a Rick, created the finite central curve, which is an infinity inside of infinity that he's walled off, where he and he alone is the smartest man in the universe. And so
It's pretty dope.
it no, it's not.
I mean, from a standpoint of like, I don't know. To me, it's actually pretty fascinating.
Well, the Morty's Morty is finally able to figure out when the our Rick, our C-137 Rick, comes there. Oh, so I guess he is the one who set it up, because he needed that information from the brain scanner to figure out how to escape it. So really, it's about the Mortius Morty breaking free and getting out from under his oppress. So that's really what both episodes were about. Is except this Morty, the Mortius Morty, was like, I'm done with you. Like, that's someone who, like, our Morty, who we're considering our
Yeah.
Morty, is like still trying to stay with Rick, where the Mortius Morty is like, this is he's a
Morty.
shit smear of an old man. And he's like, I want to see the real universe. And so that scene of him, oh my God. And once again, it's over dramatized, but it doesn't even matter. Even though I know what they're doing, I'm still feeling these emotions, because they play the evil Morty theme song and like slowed down as he's breaking out of the
Oh,
central finite curve.
is that what it was? I didn't know what song. I didn't know what song that was. That was a beautiful song though.
It's from the original Citadel episode, because that's when we find, or not the
Um,
original Citadel episode. It's from the, well, yeah,
but that's a real like song in pop culture.
yeah. They do.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, they got a good budget.
No, for sure. I just was like, because I'm like, this song sounds familiar, but I was like, but I don't know. It was a beautiful song, and it's a beautiful moment, like the I guess animation, if you will, at that moment, like, because he goes through like all those layers of the universe to break out into, I guess, the real universe, which is really, yeah, it was so dope. And so I was like, oh man, like, it makes me appreciate art so much more.
Yeah. And and like I said, I was just naming Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland, but there's so many people who make this show amazing, and and it is gorgeous. It's like ugly and gorgeous at the same time, because so many of
Yeah.
the creatures, like because I was listening to a podcast the other day of one of the I wish I could remember his name, one of the animator, or one of the original
Mm-hmm.
character designers on the show,
Mm-hmm.
and he was talking about the process. He was also talking about how the storyboard artists are kind of the unsung heroes of
Mm-hmm.
animation. So shout out to you guys. Like, everybody did their damn thing. And it is kind of an example, like you said, it makes you appreciate art and collaboration, because it's the writing, it's the animation,
Yeah.
it's the lighting, it's the special effects, it's the voice acting. Like, all of it is so good.
Offline, I'm gonna share something with you that I think is gonna change just the game of. It has, it's mind blowing. It's gonna change the game of just how filmmaking and media is done. It's already been implemented in certain TV shows and stuff like that. But anyway, you saying all that made me think of that.
Well, now I'm intrigued. Let's end this. I feel so much better than I did at the beginning of this call. I was so sad. And like, it's hard. Listen, I'm just being honest. Like, I'm tired of like being like, oh, I'm okay, everything's okay. No, this is hard.
I think you have to have balance.
Yeah,
Practice stoicism.
and I do. I have Kolinar coming out of my ass. Okay. Like, and it just, for everybody who doesn't understand, that's the
Wait.
Vulcan principle
Oh.
of overcoming your emotions with logic.
Yeah, like you have
So
to.
my Kolinar game is tight, but at a certain point, it's I'm up time. So, like, that's just when you can't hold it back
What?
anymore, and shit gets primal.
I'm just curious to understand, like, what practical way would we implement this change um, in a way that satisfies everyone?
I would like for people like me to be able to run for public office, honestly, because I feel like me as I am right now, I couldn't run for public office if I was like, hey, I don't go to church and I don't want to. I am openly a feminist. And I'm also like, I think we should have a balance of capitalism and socialism.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't appeal to anyone. So I would like there to be like more of a the answer is I don't know. I think we need to watch more Rick and Morty. We need to watch more Star Trek. We need to get away from religious propaganda.
Well, I think we also just need to have more conversations like this on platforms like this
I
because
agree.
that's the only way to figure it out.
Yeah, and listen more. Like that's the thing. Like I get it.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. It's getting hard for me to listen because everything I listen to makes me so like either mad or extremely depressed. Because I do feel like even though we have made some gains in other ways, we've gotten like stupider. And because there's so many distractions
Yeah.
now, like, because when you said like it's ignorance, and now I guess like what it doesn't, ignorance doesn't bother me, willful ignorance does. When you could actually know better and actually have been presented with
Yeah.
evidence and you ignore it or
Yeah.
reject it, that's when
There's no excuse basically to be stupid in this time.
so when I was little, like my favorite superhero was the Hulk, like the Incredible
Oh,
Hulk.
I didn't
I
know that.
I like related super hard to the Hulk. Like when I was like 5 or 6, and like when I saw like I don't know if it was the cartoon or a movie or something or the TV show, and like you say mild mannered Bruce Banner, and I was like, yes, that like that is how I feel when I get angry and I want to smash, just like Hulk smash. Like I would feel that way about stuff, and I feel and I don't know, like I feel like maybe my inner Hulk is building up again because like I used to love that. It's like, don't make me angry. You won't like me when I'm angry. Like,
Oh man.
so yeah. Oh, in the last scene, Mr. Poopy Butthole, because I actually posted that on my social media. His monologue at the end. Everything, tragedy and comedy are two
Yeah.
sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
So saying something isn't funny is the same as saying it isn't tragic.
Yeah.
So yes, that was an extremely hilariously tragic monologue about Mr. Poopy Butthole losing his family. He lost his job.
Yeah.
He's like, remember, I lost my job at the university because I did karate on my students. And
And
then he was like, ooh, he's like, and then it's like when we're afraid to let people love us because we're like because they won't love us if they and I know that feeling. Like that's why for so long, like you don't say stuff like, hey, have you noticed that this Bible stuff is actually sick and psychotic? And it's like I literally am afraid like my mom won't love me anymore. Like if like I have to keep quiet about it because I really do feel like if I say too much like anti-religion stuff, like she'll cut me.
that's very interesting. I don't know, man. I guess it's just interesting because the parents and my upbringing, like they're also religious. Like they grew up very religious. But like I remember, like one day we were cleaning out some stuff and like this Bible came out. It's like, oh, it's like almost falling apart, and I was just about to throw it away. My grandma was like, "What are you doing? You don't throw away the Bible. You don't like." And I was just like, "Nobody's even used this book in years. It's falling apart. Like I'm throwing this away." And like she just was like she didn't want to admit that I was making sense, but I made sense, and it was just like, but I'm like, even in the other situations, like I'll say or do stuff, and I'm just like, all right, whatever, and like I see the moment go through like either my mom or my grandma or whoever's face, but then it's just like, okay, I'm just gonna move on, like, because I mean, I think in a way they know like he's kind of right, but I don't ever feel like, oh, I'm going to, I guess, lose them if I'm too whatever. But also, I don't know, I kind of just walk through life with a not giving a fuck attitude on a lot of things, and I think
To say that, but it's it's harder in real life. Like my family, but my mom in
it.
particular is extremely religious. Like she does put God over everything in her life.
I get that, but if she needs your help, who's she gonna call?
No, like she's not getting the vaccine because her church is saying don't get the vaccine. Like it's a real belief, like in her core and her being she really believes this stuff, and that's why
That's sad. How old is your mom?
it's a great question.
Wow.
65. It changes every year, don't judge me. um like
Oh, your mom is okay. Well, no, okay, that makes sense because you're like around the same. Well, no, because I was gonna say your mom is younger than my grandma, but my uncles are about the same age as you, so that would kind of make sense. Okay.
facts. So yeah, it's one of those things where I'm like, I just know not to test it. And even like this past weekend, I was like with my family and stuff. And at a certain point, I just have to put in my earbuds and zone out because we were in the South. And also too, because I mean, it would take a while for me to explain, but like white supremacy and American religion are so closely linked. So it's not surprising
Yeah.
the further south you go, the more religious stuff gets and the worse things get.
It makes me sad, actually, for certain people because I feel like there are genuinely people out there who are like they think they're doing the right thing when it comes to like religion, and I feel like because they've succumbed to this source, if you will, then like they're not allowing themselves to get the full experience of life because they won't do certain things because they
Oh,
feel like it goes
yeah.
against their religion.
Like
And I'm
get a
not talking about
vaccine.
that or like I'm not talking about killing people. Yeah, yeah. I've had. I don't know if this is tied to religion so much as like toxic masculinity, but I've had friends, more than one friend, tell me like if I was to like say I was gay, they would stop being my friend.
Yeah. Well, I feel like toxic masculinity and religion are buddies if they're not the same thing.
Oh,
Like, they're pretty intertwined, but yeah, like it's super duper sad. I had to ugh ugh. And it really hurts too because there's so many parents who were, I mean, we talk about intersectionality because I'm black and female, but I'm like, well, at least I'm not gay. Cause like, damn, like at least I like getting railed by dudes. Yay, me. I'm so moral. But it's
oh
like,
my gosh.
like how much difficult it is for women who are black, female, and gay, because there are so many do you remember the Republican Alan Keyes? Like
No, I
he
don't.
he was one of them sellout Republican black dudes, and like he cut off his daughter because she was a lesbian. And I was like, damn, like Dick Cheney didn't even do that, and that nigga doesn't even have a heart. And it's like you completely, and the fact too that her mom, I don't know, man. This whole submitting to your husband, and so many dudes are stupid. You know how many like
I think again, I say it again. You have to submit to each other. Like it's not just. It shouldn't be a one-way street.
each other? Like the idea is like, oh, I'm the man, and so what I say goes because God's a dude, and I'm a dude, and it's God, and then
Well, I just feel like that's flawed logic because like I'm not always right, even like if I think I'm right.
no,
And
don't
so if
say
I
that,
go
T.
so if I go out there and I'm doing something and I look stupid, like please do not allow myself to make me look stupid. So like be like, no, you're fucking up. Like don't do that. Like I would want my woman.
I'll tell you.
No, and that's part of the reason we're friends. But I'm saying like I value women in that aspect because they'll be like, hey, maybe you shouldn't do that. And like it's an ego checker because you'd be like, oh fuck, I want to be right, but it's like, oh no, like this could have ended up so much more worse. So I feel like when you come at it from that angle, it makes it easier to be like, oh no, maybe I should listen to a woman personally.
I mean, we should listen to each other because so many times too, you have given me, even
But I
today on the podcast, given me very good advice about not being such a bitch, and maybe people would listen to me more.
wow. Well, I think for me that comes from this place of selfishness because I don't want. I'm very. I try to be very aware of image and just how I come off, and like I don't want to look stupid. Like that's like a I don't know fear of mine. So, yeah, woman, please correct me. Correct me.
I'm kind of stupid though, so if I come off that way, it's because I don't know most of the things. So yeah.
Well, I mean stupid like as far as like there's levels to it. Like I don't want to like don't I don't want to like pretend to speak on a subject and I clearly don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Like so like I try to be very mindful of like I don't know the particulars, but from what I'm gathering like this is my opinion on it and then if I'm corrected later, by somebody who's like, "Oh, you're doing this wrong." Or even just having women friends who like I would say certain things, when I have conversations, they'd be like, that's kind of misogynistic. I'd be like, well, I'm not I don't view myself as a misogynist. And they were like, well, I interpret it as misogyny because of X, Y, and Z. And I'd be like, oh, no, I can totally see why she would feel that way. So then it allows you to be able to be like, well, I'm not particularly meaning it like this. This is the angle that I'm coming from with it. And then like now we can have a conversation where it's like, okay, I respect what you're saying. I think a lot of times it's like people will say things and it's like that isn't necessarily what they mean. It's just like it's being verbalized in a way that may be dismissive of other feelings or whatever. So, but if we don't have these conversations, then or if we always just feel like stupid woman don't ever tell me something, then yeah.
Yeah,
We'll
this
never,
idea
we'll
that like
never.
women were these simple creatures created like for men's pleasure, like the helpmeet,
Yeah, yeah,
like nah, nah,
yeah.
no.
I think also a lot of guys think that it can be emasculating to like have to listen to a woman because or just anything like any aspect where a woman could have potential power over you or one up over you because you got to think the psychology of most dudes is like we're conquerors, like we want to like be the best and like we want to be great at shit. So like if a woman is making more money than you or she seems to be more intelligent than you, like I've had like women tell me like they feel like because I'm so smart I have to feel like I have to dumb myself down. Like a woman that I'm cool with, she told me she was dating this dude and she tried to like give him an opinion on something and he was like, hey, one thing you don't ever have to do in this relationship is think. I'll do that for us. And I
It's like,
was
yeah,
just
baby,
I was
don't worry
just
your pretty little head about it.
oh man. And I was just like, oh man, no, that's that I don't know. But again, I've had a unique experience. Like I grew up pretty much around all women. I read Cosmo. Like I wanted to know how women thought because I wanted to get laid. So like I thought like this may be advantageous for you to be able to understand how women think.
I think education, to your point before about how when you're approaching stuff that is upsetting to you, and you remind yourself that it's coming from a place of ignorance, that I think I'm going to take that with me today and try to calm down a little bit. Um, I think that Rick and Morty helps. I do like the fact that they address, like, they've made an effort to have more female writers and at least tried to. The thing I appreciate about Dan Harmon is the fact that he's not trying to, he's not virtue signaling. To me, he's like, I'm a very flawed person and I drink too much and I've got all these flaws. I hurt people who are close to me a lot of times. I've sexually harassed women. But like, why not do that anymore? I think that the other thing is too is create, oh, this is my biggest thing too, is incentivizing allyship. Like I want men to want to ally themselves with feminism. Like I think one thing to point out too is that if men were more aligned with female empowerment, they would get more blowjobs.
I would not disagree with that, but I would also say a more practical way to think about it too, which has also helped me, is like whenever I've been called out for possible misogyny, is like, trying to remember like I have sisters, I have a mom, I have aunts, I have friends who are women, and so when a situation arises, it's like, well, I want the best for them. Like I would want them to be in great situations in life, and so I try to practice that when I engage with women that I don't know, and it's like, or who are not related to me, because you know that's somebody
Talking about
else's.
empathy and altruism, I don't think that motivates most
I
people. I
think I
think what
think it does because you have to think like
most
when you
men, the
have a
dudes
daughter,
you know, does that
but they
incentivize
don't
dude?
have daughters when
You
they
don't have
start.
daughters.
I don't, but I have sisters.
Sure, but I'm just saying because I agree that should be a good reason to, and I'm glad that that's your motivation. I think for let's think about some of the guys that you've known that let's say exhibit toxic masculinity. Like if I'm trying to get them on our side, do you
I
think
think it's over for them.
altruism?
Honestly, for some of them, I just think it's
No,
over.
I'm not giving up on anybody. I'm like, would altruism or the promise of more blowjobs
Of
be
course, jobs. No, I said I did not disagree.
okay? I'm glad for you. Like, because here's the other thing too that I have to be like, do I want people to make the right decision for the right reasons, or could they make the right decision for the wrong reasons?
I mean, does it matter as long as they're making the right decision?
That's what I'm saying. So, like, I'm trying to incentivize allyship. I also think that men who are not like super racist are probably I'm guessing because they're not measurable, men being racist and being sexist makes you a miserable fuck because you're living in a lie. Black people aren't worse than white people, women aren't worse than men. Like when you're living in the truth of that, you're a less miserable person, and that makes you more attractive, and that gets you laid more.
I have a question because you saying that made me think. So, do you? I've often heard this being thrown around. I was scrolling on Facebook and somebody had said something. I don't remember, but basically, the sentiment out there nowadays is like women. The argument from that I hear often from men is that, well, if women stop spending so much time trying to be the man, then like you know, basically, what am I trying to say here? Sorry, people. I guess what I'm trying to ask is, do you think that because women have now been able to do more, fuck, I don't know. I'll come back to this because I know what I'm trying to ask. I don't know how to verbalize it. I'm trying to see if women,
Do you think like because you're talking a little bit, it sounds like to me anyway, like gender roles, and so one of the complaints is that men are encroaching onto the like roles of men in the relationship, and that's problematic.
yeah, in a way. I guess I'm asking like because women have obviously had are doing more and have had to do more specifically in black community because of mass incarceration and stuff like that. But like
And slavery, don't forget about that.
slavery as well. Do you feel like it has kind of made men feel worthless or emasculated, and that also fuels their frustration and how they deal with women? Because okay,
But that's not women's fault.
it's not.
So that's the thing. I think a lot of times we end up being the recipients of abuse because of those feelings, because of those
Mm-hmm.
societal problems. But that's the thing because we're sorry about that. Because we're usually we're primed as women to solve everyone's problems, black women especially.
Mm-hmm.
So when you take on, like I said, being around my family this week, and I just noticed how hard everyone's working, even in our time off, like everyone's like going, going, going. And it's like, what would happen if we just sat around and enjoyed each other's company? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what would be the worst if we just ordered out food instead of cooking all this food? Because we all have like these full-time jobs. One of my cousins, I mean, I don't want to get into all of that because we've already talked for so long, but because I went from Rick and Morty to talking about gender roles. It's the fact that the heteronormative gender roles that we think about in relationships are flawed as well. Because to me, I don't think there's anything wrong with women working outside of the home. I don't think there's anything wrong with men doing domestic work. Like you said, like we're submitting to each other. So I think that's the part about freedom that is daunting is like you actually do get to set the parameters of your relationship. Like even now, we talk about this now too about having like, because both of us, we're both just, you remember the dragon episode of Rick and Morty?
No, you remember all these episodes. It's like 5 seasons, dude. Like, no, I don't.
Show. So I like watch it over and over again. I love it so hard. So like there's an episode where Morty gets a dragon and it ends up like soul bonding with Rick. And so like it gets
Oh yeah, yeah, I remember that.
all that to say is like we're both a pair of slut dragons. Like neither one of us are trying to do the monogamy for life model relationship.
Yeah.
And but it's because we took the time to think about it, like what really works for me. I know this is what I've been told that good people do because I want to be do you let's just say this. I want to be a good person, at least as good of a person as I can be. Do you feel like you try to be a good person?
Yes, but I struggle with that. For
Sure, but that's how you know you're being a good person. It's never like, "Oh, I've done it. I'm a good person. Work done." Like it's a striving. Like I know like most of my nature is like trying to be a weaselly piece of shit, so I'm trying to tamp that down and when I can be a good person. But I've tied most like for the first part of my life, I've been told like if you want to be a good person, can't be a slut, you got to just give it up to one guy who has promised to only have sex with you for the rest of your life. If he steps out occasionally, I mean, that's not great, but you should forgive him. If you step out, he needs to just leave. So it's this sort of idea of like, wait, that's not really what makes me happy. Like, or at least with what I know about myself. For me,
yeah,
for right now, I kind of like being single. I'm so tired at night. I was watching 30 Rock the other day, and Tina Fey's characters, her friend was asking her about her new relationship. It's like, oh my God, how's the sex? She was like, it's fast and only on Saturdays. It's perfect. And it's like, yeah, like I kind of feel that way sometimes because it's like, man, if I had to actually have sex with another person regularly, that would just take up so much time. And also fostering that relationship because I do like when I care about somebody, I do want to foster that relationship and put work into it. And right now the way my life is, like I don't have we noticed that too when you I haven't read Shoe Dog yet, but I'm guessing that Phil
great
Knight,
book.
like I'm guessing that maybe his personal relationship suffered because of him being a massive success, like
Oh, absolutely.
business wise,
A particularly heartbreaking one with one of his sons too. So yeah.
yes, like it's very difficult to this idea of like having it all where you have the perfect partner relationship and the partnership with like relationship with your kids and running a striving business and running 3 miles every day, like all of this stuff like takes so much work that we kind of take for granted. So
Yeah.
that's all I'm saying. Like we just the idea that freedom is daunting, like taking the time to really think about yourself, what you want, and can you make that work within the environment that you're in right now.
I would say this as kind of a ending point from what you said. I think just why one of the reasons the Bible is so powerful is because I think inherently human beings are looking for guidance, and it takes so much work to like be like, you know what, I'm gonna go try this thing, and if I fail at doing it, like, because like a lot of us we already don't want to fail, and so the Bible is pretty much an instruction guide in a way for you to like, this is what you're supposed to do in life. Da 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 da. Just if all else fails, you got this to revert back to. But for people who step away from that, it's like, no, you kind of have to make it up as you go along. There's no real rule like or I'm sorry, polyamory or being an entrepreneur or any of that stuff. There's no real like guide for that. Like you can watch what other people do, but like you kind of just got to make it up. And I think that scares a lot of people, and this is
Well, yeah,
why
because you're
they,
gonna get stuff wrong.
yeah, and I think that's why they're just like, oh, I would much rather just be in a monogamous relationship. I would much rather just go to church every Sunday or whatever because like I don't. The world is already scary enough. I mean, every disease is trying to kill you. Animals are trying to kill you. People are trying to kill you. So it's just like I need
COVID's trying to
something.
kill us.
Yeah, I need something that's going to, to make life, comforting.
I agree with you wholeheartedly there. And I think that's a good point. And also too, because it's Star Trek Day, and I got this quote from Star Trek, even though it's Invictus, but to me it was always Captain Picard saying this. So imagine this is Picard's voice. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. And that was, William Ernest Henley, actually. But for me, it's Captain Picard always. Live long and
Uh,
prosper, T.
Live long and prosper. I never figured out how to do that, but yeah, sure.
It's easy.
Uh,
I've
Everybody
been doing
says
it
it's
since I was,
easy.
but I've been doing it since I was little.
My hand just does this. I don't know how to do the other.
It takes training. Use your Colinar, dude.
Okay.
All right, y'all. We're out. Thank you so much. And thanks for hanging with us. We were all over the place.